Hey everyone, I'm so excited seeing that video and having Zach with us today to talk about event-led growth and a bunch of other things regarding to reporting, attribution, and integrations. We're going to be exploring the challenges of disconnected systems, fragmented data, and just attribution confusion that affects all event professionals. My name is Jason Askew, and I'm a senior product marketing manager with Cvent for the past 8 years. But I'm bringing 12 years of experience executing enterprise level events. And before introducing our experts, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items that I'm sure you're used to. You're joining us today on Cvent Webinar. It's our webinar solution on the Cvent platform. And you can join the chat on the right side of your screen to submit questions in the Q&A. If you want to meet each other, maybe shout out your states or where you're from. It's pretty popular things. But today, I am joined by Zach Napolitano, and he's a senior marketing manager joining Cvent from Splash, which is now part of Cvent. And he brings nearly 12 years of experience with event professionals. And he works, among other things, to enable event marketers to own their marketing strategy and make the most of their event program spinning. Next, we have Ryan Costa, a senior principal solutions consultant bringing nearly a dozen years of experience in highly complex and challenging customer tech stacks, and he is highly focused on integrations. Finally, Rachel Cook, a principal solutions consultant with nearly 6 years of experience in sales and helping our customers tackle the most complex challenges they face in their organization or their event program. Now, I love all of this experience, and let's hurry up and get these folks talking. When we're discussing topics like reporting and integrations, we sometimes make the mistake of jumping right into the technical details. Stuff like, is the integration bi-directional? Should we integrate with Salesforce or Marketo or both? What fields are we mapping to? What personnel do we need to set up all this stuff? But if integrations aren't your job, it's just going to feel like Greek. So before we get into all of that, I think it's important that we sort of zoom out and start with the why. Why are we doing this in the first place? Why are integrations critical to your event strategy? And how do they help you do better business? And your whys matter. This might not be yours. That's why we prompted a few questions in our Q&A panel for you to vote on maybe some of these questions that apply to you. Otherwise, just pop the ones in that you're stressing about or want some answers to, and we're going to get to those either during the webinar or after when we do our Q&A. Now, Zach, you spent the past year developing an event-led growth certification course, essentially a playbook for building a revenue-generating event strategy. Now, one of the biggest things that jumped out to me was, wow, you really made a choice to spend a lot of time breaking down integrations, attribution, and reporting. And that's why you're here today. But before we get into that, can you tell us what you mean by event-led growth?
Yeah, sure thing, Jason. And thanks for having me here today. Super excited. Hopefully, everyone who joined saw the little preview video with me beforehand to get a feel for what we're talking about with the certification Jason just mentioned. But yeah, let's define what we mean by event-led growth to start. So we define event-led growth as a go-to-market strategy that uses events as a primary channel for acquiring, engaging, and retaining customers. And I think defining it as a go-to-market strategy tells us a lot of what we need to know about it, right? So when a revenue team goes to market, they're thinking about their full funnel from brand awareness all the way through to how they're speaking to customers. They're using consistent year-round strategies to create, capture, and keep demand. They're collaborating across teams, marketing, sales, CS, marketing ops, biz ops, exec, and so on. It's a team sport. And as with any go-to-market motion, and this is really where the integration piece is going to come in, there's rigorous goal setting, measurement, reporting, forecasting, and using all that data to think about how you can make smarter future investments. So event-led growth is all of those things. It's consistent year-round event programs. You're using events at every stage of your funnel to impact revenue throughout the journey. And with every event that you develop, you want it to be super intentional and tailored to your audience and where they are in terms of potentially buying your product. And of course, all of this comes with extreme discipline about measuring bottom line impact.
I think you had mentioned it has to do with the commitment, I think, to the measurement, right?
Yeah, sorry, Jason. I think we lost audio there for a second, but we're good. I caught your question. And yeah, so let's talk about the role integrations play in your ELG strategy, why they are so important. It's a great way to start. So the first way is to think about it here is the commitment to measurement I just mentioned. So the biggest irony is with events is that so many event planners and marketers we talk to, events are the single biggest line item on their marketing budget, often by a pretty wide margin, yet events are the single biggest, tend to be like the one channel that they struggle to measure the most. So while they know they work on a visceral level, many are left reporting on them using vanity metrics or just survey data or anecdotes like, hey, we ran out of swag, or everybody had a great time. And that's, not to call anybody out. It's a big challenge. But if we brought those types of anecdotes into any other reporting meeting and reported on those channels that way, it wouldn't be taken as seriously. So the reality is that how businesses report on events is usually far less sophisticated than how they're reporting on all their other channels. Why? Well, it starts with integration or lack thereof. So now I think I have a nice slide to illustrate this too that I'll jump to right now that I called the data dilemma here. But simply put, if your registration and attendance data aren't integrated into your CRM, your reporting is always going to be levels removed from revenue impact. So the first and most obvious reason integrations are important is that they're going to be the building blocks for the reporting you need to manage your events like the business they are. Now, the second reason is what I would refer to as the next best action, or what you do with the data. So events are arguably the best source of first-party data you can get. Your attendees vote with their feet and their time, which tells you all about who they are, where they work, what they're interested in, and where they are in their buyer journey. So those are some of the loudest intent signals you'll ever come across, right? By using integrations to automate how quickly that data you're getting from your events reaches all your other teams has a profound impact on the speed and efficiency of your sales cycles. So when your attendance data hits your CRM, sales can start working those leads the moment after they had a great experience with your brand, or even before if you want them to help you drive attendance. When that CRM report includes engagement data like sessions attended or questions asked, your CS team can now proactively offer support or uncover new expansion opportunities. And then when your attendance data, for example, syncs to your marketing automation platform, now you can automate nurture emails or figure out what's the best ad display to show to this particular attendee. But if this data is sitting in your spreadsheets or stays stuck in your registration platform, like the previous slide showed, there's a good chance you're leaving a lot of ROI on the table.
That makes total sense, Zach, and I love looking at all of these places, where we're getting all of these footprints and gathering together. And it's really hard and it's difficult to wrap your mind around, but making sure you have the right tools and doing that is great. But you did mention the ultimate buzz term that seems to sticky code all of our messaging for event marketing. It's return on investment.
Yeah, I sure did, Jason. That one tends to be an attention grabber, but I figured today's the day to talk about it and talk about it in a real way, not just a buzzy way.
Right. Well, how does our audience get there?
Yeah. So it's the big metric, right? And it's a powerful one when you do get there. So it's a really powerful thing to be able to say, hey, we spent $10,000 on this event, and 6 months later, we're able to attribute $100,000 and close one revenue to it. So we have an ROI of $90,000 or 9x our original investment after expenses. But there are a lot of factors that go into getting to that place. And the big question, it's often highly disputed and will vary from business to business, is how much credit should marketing touchpoints like events get for impacting revenue? So for example, if a late stage prospect attends your VIP dinner and then signs that $100K contract a week later, should the dinner get 100% credit for all of that revenue? What about the time they spent on your website doing research? What if they read blog posts from your company? What about the videos they checked out on YouTube? What about the webinar, like today, that they attended? The list goes on, and we know if we know anything about a buying journey, there's usually dozens of factors or touch points that go into influencing a purchasing decision. So of course, there's no right answer in terms of how much credit an event or any of these touch points should get, but tools and frameworks that allow us to estimate and do it consistently. So what we're talking about first is the concept of attribution. So that's a reporting model used to determine which touch points to assign credit to and how much credit they should receive. So some of the models our audience has probably heard of include first touch attribution, last touch attribution, and the one I feel is best for event-led growth, multi-touch attribution. Now, bringing that full circle back to ROI, integrating your event data into your CRM, in our opinion, would be step number one. Minimally, this is going to include your registration data and attendance data, who is actually in the room. Step two is to work with your biz or RevOps team to get a reporting framework in place for attribution. So to be clear, if you're an event marketer or an event planner in our audience today, my message to you isn't, hey, you need to go listen to this webinar and lead an attribution revolution at your company. Not your job. Your job, in my opinion, would be to partner with the right people in your organization, figure out what attribution model is available to you, and then work with them to create a reporting framework that works for your events. And again, that all starts with integrations. So your job, have the conversation, and this is going to lead to a place where you could start to see over time how much pipeline your events created or influenced and how much revenue the events you hosted led to actual closed won business. And if you can attribute revenue to an event program, then you're just a step away from being able to, again, subtract the costs and know what that ROI number is. And the reason that ROI number is so important is it helps you figure out, was the juice worth the squeeze, right? Did you spend a ton of money or use a ton of your team's bandwidth for an event that, when you look at the numbers, didn't really make a tangible impact? That's something we might want to think about cutting or reimagining. By the same token, if there's events that your business is doing and crushing and it's leading to great revenue outcomes, maybe you double down on that or find opportunities to replicate it. So again, the theme today is going to be the importance of integration for how it's going to be able to up-level your reporting and get you into that event-led growth mindset, taking the guesswork out of the events that you're doing.
That makes sense. And I look back at looking at how our event professionals, their day-to-day jobs are a lot of checklists and getting ahead of things and not thinking about these things. And I think, listening to what you're saying is really stepping back and doing more with their role, being more influential and taking these things seriously. Being curious about your tech stack and how data moves, I think is another thing that we can add here, is really just reach out and inform them as well. I think a lot of organizations don't understand how event data moves, and opening that up and making them part of your solution to really just kind of garner all of that event spend. And I know we're only scratching the surface on this really big and meaty topic. Yeah. So how can people learn more about it, Zach?
Yeah, you mentioned it at the intro, and we played the little teaser video. So that Event-Led Growth Masterclass is available to everyone in the audience today. If you're a Cvent customer or a Splash customer, you get to enroll for free. We cover everything I just discussed, but it'll be a lot more visually compelling and really take the time to break it down. So integrations, attribution, ROI, KPIs you can use, a lot more depth, a lot more pizzazz. And we're going to make this course available to every Cvent customer and prospect in June, coinciding with our Cvent Connect user conference. But if you would like to be amongst the first in the audience to take it, you could find me on LinkedIn or email me at my first name, my last name, zach.napolitano@cvent.com. Would love to hook you up with a 100% off juicy discount code so you can get in and start learning.
I'm super excited to see this course available to everyone. I think it just makes it easier, and us tying back to what I said before, is just understanding how event pros are thinking about their data. We have a lot of associations, and we have Even if we're thinking about financial businesses, trying to keep track and maintaining security, and folks getting up to speed with medicines and trainings, there's just so much there to just really help impact your attendees, prove the value, especially with such high spending that's going on with events. Now we have to look at actually actioning this data, right? And we're going to get more technical, okay, into the how-tos. And that's why Ryan and Rachel are here. These are the folks that really get on the calls and get into the weeds to talk about how to get this data where it needs to be, that you require for your organization. And we want to be thinking about connecting and gluing these kind of plumbing pipes together and managing these data storage tanks and getting them into actionable reporting to make the most of your event data. Ryan?
Thank you so much, Jason. I don't know, Zach. I know that the event-led growth course will be very visually appealing, but I think we all look pretty cool too. Don't forget Rachel too. We're all out here presenting. I appreciate that. All right, so I hope all of you out there are super excited, right? You've learned a bit more about attribution and event-led growth. Now we want to talk about how we actually get the data into that tech stack, and what are some practical ways to work with that data, and of course, how do you get started? So let's look at a few of the different integration methods, and then we'll provide some very specific examples of how data is integrated in those platforms. So here's an example of a sort of a very simple data integration. Cvent generating a lot of the event marketing. Of course, we're known most for our event management. That's going to be websites and registration questions, the mobile app and the experience, and then of course all of those insights and the data that we're able to collect. So you'll see point-to-point integrations that my colleague Rachel here will talk about in a moment, to things like your CRM, marketing automation. Some of those things are done via productized integrations, meaning they're click and configure. And some of those things are done via our APIs or development through the integration hub, which is both our integration product and services team. Of course, we have some bigger picture integrations. We've got folks out there, I'm sure, that have CDP and business intelligence sort of platforms. And I think in today's world of having so much data, we're really looking at how can you collect it and standardize it and work with it in a more centralized way. And that's where you see something like an integration to data storage. Ultimately, all of that event data, as Zach and Jason had mentioned, needs to get to all of those downstream tools to be able to prove the impact of events. So let's get started and talk a bit about sales and CRM and marketing integrations with Rachel.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so where we see many of our customers start their integration journey is with the CRM, like Salesforce, or with marketing automation tools like HubSpot, Marketo, Eloqua. As Zach mentioned, these point-to-point integrations are built for speed. They're meant to be quickly actionable. It gets attendee interest and activity into the hands of marketers and salespeople so that you can quickly deliver on the next best action. CRM integrations can do things like include event activity along with non-event activity to give salespeople key interest and talking points as they talk to customers or build those relationships. You can also create tasks to alert team members of key points along the attendee journey, like, for example, a reminder to reach out to someone who abandons registration for your annual conference. You can also create opportunities when product interest is shown via an event or session attendance. And that's just to name a few. By syncing back your key event and actionable data to your CRM, you can do all these things and more to maximize and measure your overall sales and marketing outreach strategy. But the fun doesn't stop there, as integrating with your MarTech is also key to your overall marketing strategy. Like, for example, if a prospect or lead attends a series of your hosted webinars and in-person events, that's signaling interest in a specific product or service. From there, lead scores can be updated, and the prospect is added to relevant campaigns and journeys to receive content like ads, emails, white paper, newsletters, videos, etc. Integrating your event data to marketing automation tools like HubSpot, Marketo, Eloqua means delivering personalized experiences based on the data you receive across all of your marketing channels, including events.
Excellent. So we talked about some of those point-to-point integrations that activate data quickly, and those are great and likely what a lot of you out there think about when you're thinking about integrations. But what about getting a depth of data for thorough analytics and business intelligence? I am happy and excited to announce our new data bridge integration and being a great example of how to get that information to your analytics and BI tools. This facilitates receiving a depth of data to the same storage your other marketing channels link to, allowing the data and analytics teams to then clean and standardize that data before it goes to downstream tools, right? It's all data in the stream. That is what we are. So now that you know some of our integration options, let's dig just another level deeper into them and talk about some of those tangible examples. I think we're going to start off with some CRM and some Salesforce examples, and my expert here, Rachel, will walk us through those.
Perfect. Now, Ryan and I work on our solutions consultant team, so we always want to get right into the tool to show you some actual examples of how these data points can translate into your MarTech and CRM systems. So I particularly specialize in Salesforce, so I'm going to start with our most popular example of the Cvent Salesforce app. Within this integration, we can share event and attendee data via custom objects provided with the integration. And we can use that data to update some of your more common standard objects in Salesforce, like contacts, leads, tasks, opportunities, campaigns. Via the contact or lead page, Salesforce users can view events this person is engaged with, registered for and attended, their current status within that given event, and any additional questions answered or information collected from that attendee's registration for that event, or like why they're attending, what invite list they're on, etc. They can also view any opportunities created by event actions, task assignments triggered by attendee activities, and action buttons to invite or register this contact for an event on their behalf. For marketers, we can seamlessly tie event and attendee data to campaign and campaign members by auto-creating campaigns when a new Cvent event is created and synced to Salesforce, by mapping Cvent contact fields and statuses to Salesforce campaign statuses, updating campaign member statuses as audiences and attendees progress on their event journeys, and creating opportunities based on attendee statuses to tie events to pipeline. Now, on top of that, we also provide customizable record matching, field mapping, and permission sets, allowing you to have total control on what data maps from Cvent to Salesforce and vice versa. With this integration, you will have full control over where the data goes, how often it's synced, and who can view that data in Salesforce. But the Cvent Salesforce app isn't our only self-service out-of-the-box integration. We also have integrations for your MarTech solutions like Marketo, Eloqua, and HubSpot. As well, I'll pass it to Ryan to speak a little bit more about our MarTech integrations.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's talk about HubSpot for MarTech. I think that they are an awesome player in both the CRM and the marketing automation world now. So similar concepts as Rachel mentioned, but for marketing, it's more about lead generation, scoring, understanding which marketing efforts are working, etc. So here we've got a lead scoring example. Whenever somebody attends one of these particular field marketing events, let's say we want to increase that score by 5 points. And as Zach mentioned earlier, perhaps that is also being tracked against other engagement and activities that they're doing outside of an event. What about net new lead generation? I have over 4,000 leads that were created by events, as this dashboard shows. Or maybe I want to see what are my most popular events by event types, my webinars versus my roadshows, etc. Here's a pretty interesting journey report that I really like HubSpot for. You know, I have in this example, every single new contact gets invited to a webinar as an example. And here I can see how many people actually end up registering for that webinar, as well as how many people end up attending. And we can actually get a percentage rate of how does that strategy work of any net new lead or contact created being invited to an event, and how many of them actually show up to those particular webinars and what they're doing within them, right? So similar to what you're doing today, you're asking questions, maybe we'll answer a poll, those types of things. We can sync that data back to your MarTech and your CRM as well. So these reports that we just looked at in HubSpot and Salesforce. They're helpful, but sometimes you need a bit more reporting muscle with event-specific data. So let's see what we've been cooking up with insights.
Oh, it's me. Am I up? Hi guys, sorry about that. Well, I realized that the video wasn't playing while I was talking, so I do apologize, but wanted to let you guys know we have a demo video of the Salesforce app. So while my audio and my script must have been amazing, and I'm sure it was super descriptive, we do actually want to show you what you would see in the Salesforce app. So I promise we will get you that link to the demo video, and you'll get to hear my voice again. So a little double action for you guys, but appreciate your patience. And Jason, I will pass it back to you.
This is great.
Sorry,
Yeah,
wait, I'm so sorry. I skipped ahead, guys. This
okay.
is live. We're here for your entertainment, and I forgot where I was. So we're going to talk about cross-event reporting, the most exciting thing in the world. This is what happens when you multitask during a webinar. Don't do it. So with Cvent's cross-event reporting, we talk about how we can gather all the data, but the most important thing is how you report on it. And within Cvent, as you guys may know, if you're current customers, there are a lot of data points within an event that we can track. So within an event, when they arrived, do they attend sessions, their engagement? But within the larger programmatic scale, we also want to be able to track event to event. So how has our annual conference done from 2024 to 2025? How is our programmatic approach with meetings going? Are we seeing a growth in attendance? Are we seeing more interest? Are we seeing our no-show rate increase or decrease? So within Cvent, you do also have robust cross-event reporting, which allows you to filter out certain event types, create those different programmatic reports and dashboards so that you can share with stakeholders what the larger program looks like and how your data is coming into Cvent. Now, we also do have a new release coming out soon, so customers can look forward to this release. I think it's May right now. I'll double check on that for you later, but this is our event insights. So we're pulling those cross-event reports that we've already provided you and consolidating them into an analytics and insight dashboard. So this insights dashboard will include different views that each user can create for themselves. They can exclude certain event types. So if I want to say, I don't want to pull templates into this, or I have a few test events I don't want to grab, I can make sure that each view in my dashboard shows a specific programmatic list of events within a given time period. Maybe it's within a certain region, within a certain planning team. And this dashboard will show a number of different insights that you can pull from different cross-event reports and pulls it all into one view. So that can include registration and attendance numbers, feedback collected, budget and accounting information. So all those data points are now going to be consolidated and provided to you in a nice, easy to use, easy to understand dashboard that you can customize. So we're very excited for this release, and we will be hopefully getting this out to you within a month. So something definitely to look forward to. But this is the data we can track in Cvent, but the magic really happens where we can get this data out of Cvent and into your centralized data system. So I'll pass it to Ryan to talk a bit more about that.
Thank you much. And I don't know how many of you out there in webinar land come from Cvent Brown and those old Crystal reports, but I think if you have, you will have to agree. We come a long way with those cross-event reports, and this cross-event insights is yet another advancement that we're making there. So I'm very excited about that. All right, so what do you do when you need dashboards like this in your dashboarding and other reporting tools? And I say this as I don't know, I think to the right here, you'll see it. Our new data bridge integration is for all my data analytics and reporting nerds out there. I see you with your website activity and product interest dashboards and insight, your revenue attribution reports out here doing the real hard work. So the new data bridge integration sends account, budget, events, sponsor, exhibit, and survey data to your storage solution. So, again, if you're out there in this world and this might be a completely different language for you, perhaps this might not be something your organization is invested in, but there are many out there that are using a tool like Amazon S3 for data storage. And the idea there is you want to centralize all of your different channels that are sending you important data into one storage area. And from there, those data and analytics nerds that I mentioned before will be able to cleanse, standardize, scrub that data so that it all sort of speaks the same language before it touches your downstream tools. So once it's in that storage, and this little looping video here is running through some dashboards, it can get to BI and analytics tools. So the example that we've been showing up on the screen is organizing information into a couple of key dashboards for registration, revenue, exhibitor sessions, and feedback data. So understand which events are successful. What times of the year do you see spikes for registration, or are you successfully targeting the intended personas with your events? That's what you might do with a registration dashboard, as shown in the video. If it's about dollars and cents that matter, and of course it always does, how much revenue are we actually generating from events? And how does that break up across registration versus sponsorship, merchandise sales, or any other sales that you're attributing to an event? Is sponsorship sales up or down, and by how much? This type of dashboarding can give you that information quick, fast, and in a hurry. It's also important to know what the top content is within your events, and in turn, what topics, products, and services are in demand, right? So I think Zach will hear you say it. I know Mike in marketing will also say it on the Cvent team. Attendees vote with their feet, and that's a sort of a interest in buying signal there. So knowing what content and what sessions that they're going to is really going to help you understand what content impacts products and services that you'll end up selling. And your organizational goals may be different, but whether you're a nonprofit or a large enterprise, there is a way to tie all of that event intelligence to the success of your company or organization. And for those of you who might not have an enterprise data storage tool, like I mentioned, like Amazon S3, the great news is we have a Cvent Event Intelligence team, CEI for short, because we love an acronym here at Cvent. They construct executive-ready dashboards and reporting just like the one that you just saw. So if you don't have any of these data storage or business insights and analytics tools, let Cvent build those for you and still get that power that we just mentioned and action on that data. So now that you know what's possible, you're probably wondering, how do you get started? And I suggest reaching out to your account or your sales manager, and we can learn more about your specific integration requirements to start your integration journey. And if you have any questions right now, I've seen you've been asking questions, so ask questions away, upvote other people's questions if you have them. And from there, Jason, how do we do?
I think we did pretty good. There's a lot of insights, and there's a lot of videos that are showing where this data is going, how to really think about it, and actually showing where it's going and how to move it and think about it. And I love the idea of our marketing professionals integrating, and Salesforce, HubSpot, and Marketo by far the most popular, and looking at how they can empower all of you in what you do every day, and helping drive a more personalized and timelier engagement. And it's also activating that event data with some of our core reporting. You saw a lot of different reports. I know it might be a little confusing, there's a lot, but if you're looking at our core reporting and understanding it and working with your AMs to really help kind of drive some of that information you look for forward, is always helpful. And we're constantly adding more and better reports to our core platform. And like Ryan said, if it's not meeting your needs and you're just a very sophisticated organization with a heavy event program, we have our event intelligence consultants team that can help build some of these dashboards. And then we just released our data bridge, which just further enhances our ability to analyze and help you act on event data the way you want. So the idea here is just flexibility, managing the data, in your way. With that said, I'd love to open it up to Q&A with the team here. And I think the first question we have here is, this was one of our seed questions, just trying to get a feel for our group here. And we already track registration and attendance. What's the next to show marketing influence? I'm happy to have maybe Zach jump in or Ryan, but this kind of goes back to our reporting, is looking at the reports and having the conversations with your sales leaders, with your marketing leaders, and finding out what moves the needle for your org and generating those reports that you need. And I'll pass it to Zach, see if he's got so many insights that he'd like to share there.
Yeah, great stuff, Jason. And I'll keep it simple here. I really do believe, and this isn't coming from bias because this is an integrations webinar, I think first step is integrating your event platform with your CRM. And the reason being is, once those attendee records, who is in the room, who is interacting with your events, is living in the same neighborhood as leads, contacts, and then the big one, opportunities. Now, when that data is in that CRM environment, we could start running reports on how much pipeline was generated as a result of a campaign that we ran, an event campaign. Are the contacts who attend our events more likely to renew? Are they more likely to expand? How much so, right? So it's all about moving the data in a programmatic and systematic way into your systems of record where all your other business operations are measured, so you could start pulling out those insights, in my opinion.
That's great. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything there for that, Ryan or Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I always hate to answer a question with a question, but I think it's, maybe it's more of taking an inventory of what you're doing in Cvent. Are you heavily vested in the mobile application? And if so, are you doing things like attaching documents or allowing for appointment scheduling? What does that mean? If we're taking a step back, somebody who registers for your event but doesn't show up, that's not as invested as somebody who registers and then shows up. And then somebody who registers and shows up and goes to 5 sessions, that's another step. And somebody who maybe schedules 5 appointments and then checks into 3 of those appointments, right? Each of those touch points, I think, just show how much more invested that lead or prospect or customer is with your organization. So I think that's where, lead scoring and some of these other things really become very important, and how you can sort of, implement those based on your needs and how you're using, MarTech, CRM, et cetera.
That's great. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rachel. Sorry about that.
It's great. I also would say it's also a learning thing, right? I mean, which buying signals are more predictably reliable, but you also might learn down the line that different actions and different behaviors are actually kind of more hidden buying signals than others. And that's where historic event reporting is going to be hugely helpful, and also integrating with MarTech and CRM so that you can track overall out of your customers, out of those who did buy, out of those who have been customers for a long time, what buying signals can you attribute from those different activities? Maybe them attending appointments, wasn't as impactful as them attending a given session. That's the benefit of historic data, is you can continue to update how much that score should impact the influence.
Love it. Thanks, Rachel. I'm going to go to our next question we had, and it has to do with Google Analytics. Can you talk more about how to utilize Google Analytics when using it with Cvent registration? Ryan, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, sure. So Sarah, I will drop in a response here the link to the, how to get started in configuring it. We do have a fairly sort of, I don't want to say it's simple, but it is meant to be fairly simple, right? Like copy and paste, click and configure style integration with Google Analytics that takes the web traffic and views and can tie it back to Google Analytics. So that's the sort of very simple way. You could also do things like implement a tracking pixel that you create, and that can also track conversions. I know with our simple Google Analytics integration, there's also ways to sort of track financials if you have paid events and some of those pieces. So I would I'll reference that guide to you, and if you still have more questions after that, feel free to ask away, or we can get you in touch with one of our solution specialists that can sit down and walk through that with you.
I love it. Before I don't want to close Q&A yet, but I want to make sure you understand that we are going to offer an opportunity to earn a $100 Amazon gift card. You're going to see a pop-up. If Greg, there he goes. You're going to see a pop-up there. If you go ahead and click it, and you sign up to complete a demo with us, or if you're just watching the recording, then just click the button in our follow-up email tips. And this can apply to anyone, so any recipient outside the US. The gift card can be converted from $100 US dollars to another available currency. I want to make sure that we make that available to you before we jump back into these questions. So go ahead and click that, and then I'm going to get back into the Q&A, because unless we have anybody else want to add anything to the Google Analytics, or I think we're good. So the next question we had, I'm going to kick it over to Rachel. She's our Salesforce expert. How do you handle duplication and data quality when you're syncing Salesforce?
$1 million question. Yeah, the fun thing about our Cvent Salesforce app is it has been developed. We've had a partnership with Salesforce for like more than 16 years. It's been a while. This iteration of our app has been built directly on customer feedback. So a lot of the features around deduplication have been updated since we first launched the app to accommodate for the different needs of our customers. So our approach right now of how we set up the configuration is you'll have a hierarchical setup for record matching, and that'll apply to contacts and leads. You can set it up differently for each record type. And you'll be able to set up basically and/or custom logic per level, and each level will be treated on its own. So you'll be able to say, okay, we're looking for matches based on, the most basic example, last name and email. If we find a match based on last name and email, or in a lot of people's cases, it can be last name and email 1 or email 2, email 3. Do we find a match, yes or no? If not, try again. So you can set up to 6 levels of record matching criteria. And so then I might search for like last name and phone number, last name and state, whatever, fields are more reliable, or to set up for different scenarios. You might have different events that are collecting different data. So that's going to allow you to set up those multiple levels of record matching and avoid the duplication process. We also have groups that choose to create new records under a certain account type so they can clear them out. But you have different options for when new records are created and how you set up the record matching. But I'm nerding out a little bit on the details. So if you do have a question about how that works, please call your Cvent sales representative and they'll loop me in and we'll talk more about it.
Oh, that's your job, Rachel. You have to do the nerding for them because,
I love
so many of our pros are out there executing like, someone help me, please. So that's great. Now we have another question here, and this is, I think we sort of answered this a little. I don't manage our tech stack. What's the best way for me to partner with our ops team on integrations? And I think that comes with curiosity and figuring out what data moves where. And, Zach, do you want to jump in and talk about, kind of reiterate some of the things you spoke to real quick?
Yeah, you use the exact word that I would use, which is curiosity. So as we said a little bit earlier, I don't think it's the job of an event planner or an event marketer to come in and lead the attribution revolution at the company, like all the technical stuff, right? But I think if you, by especially taking the course which I shared the discount codes with, I'm going to be sharing discount codes with for all the folks that emailed me. Our goal was to give you the understanding and the vocabulary so that you can lead with the curiosity and speak to your ops or revenue ops team and be like, so what attribution model are we using? How do we differentiate the value between different marketing touch points? Or give a sense of what you're trying to do. Hey, I want to get to a place where I can understand when attendees come to my event, what's happening downstream. Like, am I able to get to a place where we could report on pipeline? Ultimately, I want to be able to attribute closed-won revenue to my events, or I want to understand how many new leads or contacts this event we ran generated. So I think the course will be helpful in, one, getting the vocabulary and the ideas so you can bring them to those conversations and feel like an informed partner.
Love it. Anything, Ryan or Rachel, you'd like to add there about, having those conversations and establishing that relationship?
I would say take the ALG course because Zach does a really good job of helping understand who those personas are, what they're looking for. But yeah, to that point, it's as if you're the Cvent account owner and if you're a planner and if you're working in that tool, often translating the data you have and how that needs to be in your CRM, market automation, membership base, etc. Have that list of fields and have that idea of data when you go to ask your tech, IT, security, etc. Have an idea of what you want to sync to those systems and then bring that to them, because when you tell them I want to sync event data to your IT and tech specialists, that doesn't help them. So they speak data, they speak field, they speak what data points need to go to where and for what reason. So that's the only advice I have because we deal with this all the time. But I would say, yeah, have an idea of what data you're working with, give them an example of that data, and they'll help translate how that needs to get into your systems. And that can be a good introduction as to why you're reaching out to them in the first place.
Love it. Thanks, Rachel, and everyone else for getting to us on that. And Ryan, can we set up real-time syncs, or are most of these integrations batched?
Yeah, great question. A little bit of both, or a lot of both. So we really built integrations, especially the productized ones, thinking about the other system in mind, and do they have API call limits and those types of things. So some of our integrations are more time-based. Salesforce, for example, you have Salesforce API call limits and some of these other things that can be synced as fast as every 15 minutes. Or as slow as manual. If you wanted to have to click a button, of course, you don't want to do that. That's not the intent of integration, but it is possible. I say all that to let you know that you control that, but for an integration like that, it is batched and synced on interval. We have other integrations, our HubSpot integration right now, or our webhooks product. those are built to send data in real time. When I say real time, going back to working over some of these integrations, we're talking about seconds. So 30 seconds or less, you were able to get contact and attendance and registration changes. But we tend to sort of limit how much data is syncing in real time, right, for both benefits on both sides of the system. And then, of course, if you are building an integration using our APIs or anything like that, you oftentimes can control that, based on how often you want to make calls and some of those other pieces. So I guess all that to say, there's a lot of flexibility, and that if you're investigating a particular integration and have speed concerns, certainly let them know when you talk through that sort of scoping and requirements, and we can let you know how fast it syncs.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's see. We have this one around cross-event insights here. Can you park the reports? I think we could do that. Some of these things this is sort of what Data Bridge is helping you do, is helping you using your instance in your data environment to securely and quickly move data to where your organization uses it. But maybe they don't have it. I'm not sure if Ryan or Rachel, you could speak to what that might look like if they don't have, say, a cloud instance, whether we can do that. Yeah,
I'm double checking on the question here, because the Cvent reports portal, my best guess is that's the access portal, getting the insights dashboard into there. I don't believe so right now. Again, this hasn't released yet, and Cvent will release it with what we have after beta, and then we'll continue to enhance it. I can ask our product team, but I think we probably won't know the answer to that until it actually is released to GA. But all the reports that the data is pulling from are your existing data. We're not creating a new report here. It's all pulling from your cross-event reports. But it's a great question about the dashboard. Great use case for getting into the access portal. I will ask and get a follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because the idea here is really making the report available to people that it matters to, having dashboards that speak succinctly and quickly to let them understand how your event's performing, and even Zach has shown really great ways of doing that. So I think the thinking is in the right direction based on your question. So I love it.
And we have a lot of enhancements coming towards reports. We're still building out better graphics. So we're updating a lot in reports right now. Create your own reports. So keep an eye on your product update notifications, because reports are getting a lot of good TLC this year.
Love it. We're going to go to the next one. It's a little bit more complex, and I love it. Can you talk about how and the best way to pull in data from your events through these different tactics so that you can see one dashboard in one place? If you're showing Power BI, which really breaks down the nitty gritty, would that be the Cvent Data Bridge integration?
Yeah, another great question, Sarah. Thank you. I think this is really going to, so one, the person likely on your side who is putting together those dashboards and that information is living in some sort of analytics role. And we need to ask some questions about how they're sourcing that data. Is it coming straight to a warehouse? Are you pulling data from point solutions like your CRM or your MarTech directly and then working with it? Or are you using a data storage system, sort of what like the Data Bridge integration will solve for? One moment. All right. So Data Bridge is a great solution if you're using data storage and use something like Amazon S3 and already have initiatives or processes in place where anything that's going to touch like a Power BI gets funneled through as raw data to that data storage. And then you have your data and analytics team cleansing and standardizing and working with that data to then push it into likely a warehouse or something like that, and ultimately landing in that BI tool. So Data Bridge really works for that. That may not be your process. And I think to what Zach had mentioned earlier, I think there's a little bit of having to be curious to understand what tools are in place and how data is routed, right? Every customer is going to do something a little bit different. For us, our goal is to, based on whatever your route is, whether it's direct to your CRM, direct to your marketing automation, more to your storage, or you want us to sync directly to a data warehouse, we have the flexibility and the options to do that, but we would really want to understand what your requirements are. And then in terms of creating one singular dashboard, I know here at Cvent, we have a whole analytics department where we submit requests. We put in a rough sort of template of the type of data we'd like to see, and we partner with that person through a project to then get that dashboard across the line. So again, it will be different for your organization, but probably a good place to start in being curious and asking some of those questions.
Thanks, Ryan. Rachel, do you want to add anything on that? Otherwise, I'm going to kick a question to Zach. No?
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. And I'm sorry we didn't get you water before we do it. I know how that is when your throat dries out and there's no escape from it. From Rebecca, thanks so much for this question. If we are doing integrations and trying to provide guidance to our IT teams, is there a short list of top fields or quick wins that we should be focused on to show immediate results? I think this one goes right to Zach, and he's very familiar with fields and the data that really matters. So Zach?
Love fields. And this is a good one for me because I'd love to give my opinion on this and then have Ryan or Rachel weigh in on this. So thinking about table stakes, what would I want to sync over from Cvent to, let's say, CRM, and in this example, Salesforce? First thing would be the record of my event. So having a one-to-one mapping between an event in Cvent and a campaign in Salesforce would be step one. On top of that, then I'm thinking about my attendees, and the things that I would most immediately want to map are their statuses, their first name, last name, email. Of course, email is usually the unique identifier 99% of the time, then probably company and job title. And on top of that, if your registration forms are asking anything that has to do with, like, would you like to request a demo with us, some type of hand-raising activity, I think that's a great field to sync over as well. And in my opinion, that represents a pretty simple and table stakes integration that'll give a good foundation to be able to do a lot more. But Rachel, Ryan, do you think I'm tracking there? What do you think?
I like it. I think one thing you can get ahead of and tell your IT teams is that Cvent's unique identifier is email address, because that's not true for every system.
Right.
And also talking through the ability of certain integrations to push data into Cvent as well as extract it. So by bidirectional syncing for certain integrations like a CRM make total sense and are possible. So I think that's also something to think about and helps with that same type of data that Zach mentioned.
That's great. Yeah. And thanks, Rebecca. I'm glad you liked the format, and we're happy to do this. We love to be able to talk to you and answer these questions. So we'll keep it going. Let's see. I have the next question from Tammy. Can I track registration and revenue trends by presenter with cross-event reporting? I don't know if Rachel or Ryan, you want to tackle those. This is one of our newer reports.
Putting us on a quick detailed question. Okay, so by presenter, I'm guessing, and I know it's not a call and response question, Q&A, but I'm guessing you mean by session, because correlating speakers to revenue is a little different, but we can correlate it to the session that they presented at.
And there's some of the cross-program reporting that does have some of these trends in it, if it's not, because there's cross-event reporting and then there's cross-event program reporting. So I know there's some pieces in there with revenue, if that helps.
I want to say just in general, potentially yes, but again, I think that's something we would want to hop on a call with you to understand specifically what you want to track, and then we would play around with the reports, see what fields we can grab, and then go from there. This is definitely one of those we would want to get hands-on. So definitely, if you have your sales rep or if you want to schedule that, please do. And we can go dig into that with you.
And we love the feedback too, because granted, some of these are released, and as Rachel said, we're adding fields as we go. So learning what's coming, and if you're not subscribed to our product news releases, I'm actually the one that writes them, so I will incrementally let our customers know when these attributes are added, and then the SE teams are always briefed, of course, to help you out on your calls. So thank you so much for that, Tammy. We'll go on to another question. I'm not sure what this means. I don't know if we have an active representative. How do I find out who that is? I'm not sure if active representative.
If you're a current customer, you probably have an aligned sales rep that you already are working with. If you're not, just use the demo link that was shared. It just basically submits a form, and then a sales rep will be assigned to call and to schedule a time to meet. But if you're a current customer, you already know who your account manager is.
All right. And then we want to be, let's see here, can we be less vague? I don't know if we've answered this as we've gone along here, but what type of ops reporting would be beneficial for tracking?
I love the radical candor, and I deserved it. I really wanted to keep things nice and simple and then let the experts get into more depth, but it's totally fair to call out, and the course will go into more depth. The big things, like just, again, keeping it simple, like what specifically I'd want to track would be on a campaign or an event level, how much pipeline and closed won revenue I'm able to attribute to attendance to my event. And then big picture, being able to look at that at a programmatic level across all my events or all of a series of events and not just the individual ones would be the best way for me to explain an ideal state there.
Love it. And we're going to keep going because we're doing so many of these. I like it. How do you create, now I'm putting you guys quickly on here to see if you can answer. How do you create templates that can run multiple planner statistical information? Maybe I don't get this one. Let me see here. Create a template. So you're looking for templatized reporting here across planners? Is that what the question is? I guess we can't clarify that. If we're looking from a planner perspective or we're looking from an attendee perspective of the events they've executed.
So in terms of templates, you can create event templates, you can save reports, and those will clone over to new events. Yeah, there's a few pieces here. I'm going to focus on template and just say, yes, we do have templatized with your event creation, and you can save your custom reports so you don't have to recreate them. And within those reports, like we gave an example earlier during the event insights walkthrough, you can organize your events and filter them by those custom event fields. So some of the most common examples were the ones we mentioned, like by planner team, by region, by department, by event format. So I might have like an APAC planning team, and I just make sure that all the events that they create, maybe we can templatize the fields used, and those are, automatically labeled as APAC planning team on a custom field I've created. So there's different pieces there that I've tried to answer kind of disconnected, but I hope that kind of addresses the question.
Yeah, and it goes back to, you can build your own reports and select the fields, but again, it comes down to the fields that matter to you. So, that's what's going to really kind of move the needle for you, Stacy, I think, is understanding which ones and then making sure with your account rep that we have those fields already. So we'll go to the next one. Is there an integration that can pull in contacts from Marketo and populate them into a Cvent invitation list?
Yeah, this is a complicated answer, but there are multiple integrations. So it depends at what point do you want people added to that invitation list. There is within the Marketo integration that we have now, where you want somebody to be added at the time they, click on a registration link. So maybe it's not necessarily just pulling list to list. It's more of, hey, when somebody shows interest in wanting to go to this event by clicking on the link, they're added to this event invite list. We can do that either through the Marketo email or when they begin the registration process, we actually can pull them from the their lead information from Marketo inserted to the form. There is also with our Marketo connector a way to pull Marketo leads directly into the address book. So if you were to go to the address book and click import, you'd see one of the import options is Marketo, and then would allow you to find that list and add them into Cvent. And if you need something more sophisticated than that, then we could look at perhaps using a Zapier integration. We do have a connector with Zapier, if you've ever heard of that iPass, or we could do something a little bit more custom or bespoke for you through our integration hub, which is a team of very talented sales engineers that would sort of get your requirements and understand, when things need to trigger, how often they need to trigger, and sort of tailor that integration for you.
Thank you so much. I know we're at the top of the hour, but you guys, there's a lot of people still here, and I want to keep answering questions because I love having all of you engaged. And and asking these. So we'll go right to the next one. Will we be able to schedule reports? I'm not sure on that one.
I was just typing the response in there. Within your event reports, yes, you can schedule them to run either daily, weekly, monthly, or just once. You can have an end date to that, and it will be, the email notification will go to the user who sets it up, but you can send yourself an email notification when that report runs. There's even a fun setting where you can say, like, do I want to run this on weekends or not, which I always appreciate as planners because you guys are always working all hours of all days. So there is a setting in there to make sure you don't get that report when you shouldn't get it. But yeah, that's going to be within your event reports. We don't have them. I don't think they're in cross event reports. I got to double check that, but I know for sure they're in event reports.
Thanks, Rachel. And then we have a couple more, and then I'm going to close this out. So thanks everyone for sticking around. I love the curiosity. I have a question. It's not related to reports, but can we be notified when we have a new reg for an event by email, for example? I believe that might get into Marketo, but because I need to log in all the time to see if I have a new registration, it's been annoying, to be honest. So yeah, this week gets into the maturity of your tech stack and what you have the integrations for, but I don't know if Ryan, you want to hop on that one?
You can.
Yeah, it's a planner alert.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have planner alerts that can do exactly this, and you can add sort of filters and other things if that's something you'd like to do.
I don't know if you're a current Cvent customer, but if you are, within your event navigation pane on the left, it's under your email tab. So under emails, you'll see planner alerts. So that's where you can set that up. And there's a bunch of criteria as to what can send you a notification for, like if someone changes registration, if they newly register, there's a ton of different triggers.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Patricia. Thanks for the question. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap to get you all back to your lovely event roles. Is there a way to tag the original report name? I believe this is sort of getting into templating, so that if you're wanting to clone a similar report of another event, you know which template to use to begin with. So it's sort of titling. So whoever wants to hop on that one, if that makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think this has to do with like templating the reports and naming it in a way that makes sense.
Wanted to clone a similar report in another event. It's hard to clone reports across events. Like moving a report into another event, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm only going to be able to carry that report to a new event when I clone the event the report was living in. So yeah, I'm not sure if that is the answer or if I'm missing part of the question.
Sure, and we can have the AMs talk and bring the folks in too, but it's a great question. Sorry if we can't answer it fully. That might be a little bit of a conversation and trying to figure out where our reporting meets your needs. But thank you so much, Sarah, for that. I appreciate it. We have one more that came in. That came from Deneen. Thanks for staying on for so long. More feedback than anything. Just would love to have the ability to CC myself or a team member when an event email is sent out, so we can reply back to registrants and have the appropriate contact to manage a relationship. I feel that just comes into some of the marketing automation systems and such. I don't know if Zach or Ryan or Rachel want to hop on this last one before we go ahead and close.
CC yourself.
Asking about like a native like Cvent email functionality question. I do believe that there is a auto CC. I think it would really understand how much that differs, but I believe there is a way to send a copy too. But it may not be exactly what you're looking for here, Janine.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You can have a CC field. Like you can always send a copy to someone else. Yeah, I might need to dig into that, but there is CC capabilities.
Okay. Deneen, I love the question, and you're asking the right questions and being curious. So again, I love that in trying to figure out how to manage this data. It's always difficult, but again, as Zach said, really getting in and understanding who does what, how your data moves within your organization, and even applying pressure if you need to automate this to make your jobs easier, I think is absolutely critical. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for you, and I thanks so much for being here. Before I wrap, I want to make sure you know that we have our Connect conference coming up in June in San Antonio. And if you don't know, Cvent Connect is our go-to annual event for event professionals, marketers, hospitality experts. It's just, and also to network with one another, which is one of the greatest parts to see face-to-face. So please feel free to check out our agenda. We have a link below. And if you'd like to register, you'll see that pop up, and that same thing will take you right there. So with that said, let's just summarize some of the things that we've learned today from our amazing, talented speakers. Event-led growth that Zach talked about. It's a core strategy. Positioning events at the heart of your go-to-market approach, because this is driving consistent revenue and strengthening customer relationships. We have to remember the importance of integrations, seamlessly connecting event data with your CRM and marketing platforms, which enables timely follow-ups and personalized engagement, which enhances the overall customer experience. And then thinking about reporting, you have so many choices to activate your event data, whether it's within the Cvent platform, moving data into your tech stack so you can report on it, or even working with our consulting teams with Intelligence 360 to have that consultative approach to get data views the way that you need them. And then thinking about measuring ROI through attribution. Implementing attribution models helps accurately assess the impact of events on your sales pipeline, moving beyond the vanity metrics to meaningful insights, which is so critical for your roles. Finally, leveraging advanced tools. We talked about the Cvent Data Bridge. It can be a minor feature, but this tool allows for you to do what you need to in your organization, especially folks that manage your tech stack, like your IT decisionaire technologists, gives you a deeper analysis of event data. It's facilitating an informed decision-making and strategic planning for you and your team and your event spend. And before you go, I want to leave you with a really cool statistic that came from Splash that they did for their 2025 outlook on events. 94% of marketers employing an ELG strategy report consistent revenue compared to 77% who don't leverage events as a programmatic marketing channel. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time every day today, even staying late and asking questions. And a super big thanks to our presenters, Zach, Ryan, Rachel, and we also have Greg Jackman that is keeping all of us sane and keeping us all in front of you with all of the visuals and things we had to add for you and keep you engaged. So thanks so much.